Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Good morning, Buffaloes fans, and welcome into an all-new edition of the Buffaloes podcast here for episode 17 in season 2. I'm your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. This edition of the Buffaloes podcast, as always, brought to you by Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. We're getting into exam week here very soon in the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy students. School schedule for this year, as you can see right here, they all start up on January 21st and will be ending on the Wednesday, January 29th, as you can see right there. And then, I believe a few days off for the Buffs at that point in terms of school. But there's only going to be 2 teams going into action this week in the academy, as the U15s and U18 female prep Buffaloes will get the week off to, get some rest heading into their next week of action and getting, an opportunity to get some extra studying in before the big exams start up. But yeah, as for the male U17s and male U18 prep Buffaloes, they'll be taking on ISA's U17 prep squad both on Saturday and on Sunday. Me and Gordie Tumilson are going to be talking about those matchups, as well as the past weekend of matchups for the teams that played in the academy, which were all 4 being in action, as well as we dive into, just a bit about, the exam season for these students. And to be honest with you, Gordie gets quite animated in this week's edition of the Buffaloes podcast, so excited for you all to hear what he has to say about, the teams in the academy and how their games ended up going. So we're going to throw it to that interview now with Gordie Tumilson to start off this edition of the Buffaloes podcast on G Show Productions on gshow.ca. It's Gordie Tumilson joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. Gordie, we're going to do a bit of a reverse today in terms of the content we talk about. Instead of starting off with the games that already transpired, we're going to go into the games that are coming up. Only 4 games in total. Only 2 teams in the academy will be in action in the U17 Preps and the U18 Male Prep Buffaloes. Both teams playing out in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Yeah, Gordie, tell us about the upcoming weekend for these U17s and U18 Male Preps.
Yeah, kind of an odd weekend for us. Usually we have 3 or 4 of the teams in action, or all 4 of them. But this weekend, and I think it's because we have exams coming up, they give the girls and the young U15 guys sort of an extra weekend to to get good at school. Now the girls should be pretty good. They're always pretty good at school. I don't know why the big boys aren't getting a weekend off, but nonetheless, yeah, we play IHA. Both teams play IHA, and they play back to back on Saturday and back to back on Sunday, and then come home. So it's kind of up in the Saskatoon area, and so it's kind of a quick weekend for those guys. Two quick games each. Come home, and then they get right into exams after the weekend as well. So the 21st for the next, I don't know, 10 days, exams are on and their kids are in, and it's mind-boggling. So we kind of lose them a little bit in terms of study time and whatnot. They're cramming as kids will do. Amazingly enough, most of these kids their marks are 70 plus, and about a third of our kids are in the honor roll capacity, which is, I don't know how anybody gets honor roll, but anyway, that's what's going on. So yeah, a quiet weekend, looking for 4 wins. We think we can pull them all off. So get our road legs going and give her.
Yeah, and of course, Gordie, I mean, myself, I never even came close to touching honor rolls, so wasn't even in that stratosphere when it came to school.
Wow.
But yeah, it's great to hear that, things are going so well with the academic side of the academy. Great that, the 18 female prep buffs as well as the U15 male prep buffs get this time to, finish up their study and fine tune that heading into the big test. But as for the U17s and U18 male prep Buffaloes, Gordy, with so much going on outside of hockey right now, like, all the busy, with school and the day-to-day in the academy, how do you truly, get into the right mindset to play these games coming up against what should be a competitive opponent in both?
Yeah, well, they practice every day, so that's one thing. So they keep them sort of in the mood, but we don't want them in the mood, off the ice. They have study hall at 6:30 to 7:30 every day, or 6:15, 7:15, whatever, and so they keep busy there doing something, whether it's studying or completing assignments, etc. That's important. So, you know, we've the goalies lately we've gone through a number of hoops in the mental, psychological side of the game. Dr. Phil here is my second name, but so they keeping him away from the rink and out of the hockey mode is important. And then, but both teams traveling to Saskatoon will have time to focus Friday on travel up north and get prepared for their games quite easily the next 2 days and come home. It'll be maybe a little rough on Monday. Some of the grade 12s, I think there's a grade 12 exam on Monday, so some of the U18 guys might struggle a little bit with that. But when they're on the bus, they can study a little bit, they can sleep a little bit, so and get home and then give her for the rest of the week in the school.
Yeah, and before that happens, Gordy, of course, so we got to break down Indigenous Sports Academy ISA. Going to be playing at home against both Buffalo's teams. They only got one team, a U17 Prep team down in ISA. But yeah, going to be, of course, a competitive challenge like it usually is for the teams going up against this U17 Prep ISA squad, at least for the U17 Preps. But taking a look at it, Gordy, a great opportunity for both these teams to come away with potentially more wins than losses this weekend, given ISA's record with them last place in the U17 Prep division. What's the, I guess, scouting report heading into this week against ISA, as we've talked about them many times here before on the network before?
Yeah, I think the scouting report that I understand it would be stick to the plan, whatever the plan is, and that's up to Rick and Danny and the U17s and Anthony and Tyler on the U18s. But at the end of the day, um, staying organized is very important. Typically, ISA teams are all over the place. The Indigenous kids tend to be a little more freewheeling, kind of the Reggie Leach type of thing way back in my day. And so, dating myself, if I didn't know by the look. So yeah, so they're a little bit more all over the place. They're a little more offensive minded. And so we work on that, and so we try and take advantage of their lapses of defense. So trying to get 5 or 6 goals, give up 1 or 2, be strong defensively, look for breaks, go down, score some goals. That's what we're trying to do here. So we hope that's what it works out to be.
Well, for the U17s and U18s, they'll be getting their action started on Saturday and then finishing off on Sunday. Both teams taking on the U17 Prep Indigenous Sports Academy Eagles this upcoming weekend, Gordie, in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We are going to throw it to a quick little break here, a bit earlier on in their interview than previous times. But the reason for that is we're gearing up to talk about the past weekend of games with myself, Graham Forsyth, and Gordie Tumilson coming up here on this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. Stick around. Welcome back to this edition of the Buffaloes podcast with Gordie Tumilson and myself, Graham G. Show Forsyth. Gordie, we've been talking about, of course, the upcoming games for both the male U18 preps and the male U17 prep Buffaloes. Been talking a bit about the exams, but we're going to now dive into the past and sticking with the U18 male prep Buffaloes. They had one game and that was against Rink Hockey Academy, Winnipeg, losing it by a score of 5-3, I believe, at home at Blackjack Stewart Arena. But a pretty good start, in terms of on the scoreboard, keeping it close against a RHA Winnipeg team who's had this academy's number historically.
Yeah, it was a lower scoring game than it started off to be. I think the rink was up 3-0 about halfway through the first period, and like you had about 200 shots on goal. So we were a bit tired in goal, and then Kate Sanchez, who had made 21 saves to that point, was hurt with a minute to go in the first period. Got a kind of a whack across the neck from some people scrambling in front of the goal. He left for the hospital. He's okay. But in the meantime, so Aiden Trapp jumped in and he didn't give up a goal forever until about the end of the second period, and then one more in the third. We did lose 5-3. We came back late in the second and two in the third, so it was kind of close for us, and we closed the gap on the shots. For some reason, Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy slow start again, and I've asked the coaches many times, and again this year, can we change something? Can we do something? They were under siege right from the drop of the puck from the, it's in our end and it never doesn't go out for the, and then, we pick up momentum and get going but we're down by 2 or 3 all the time. So that's a little frustrating, I think, from everybody's point of view. And but the goalies hang in there usually, and we've gotten used to that. So the game didn't get away from us, and our kids clawed their way back and got into a pretty close hockey game at 4-3 at one point. Late in the game, it was a 5-3 game. So good on our U18 guys to play. Keep battling all the way through.
Coaches are always asking and preaching for that full 60-minute effort, right, Gordy? And it's kind of a shame to hear, right, that it's still an issue about the starts that haven't been able to be solved at this point. We'll keep an eye on that as the season goes along for sure. For this U18 male prep Buffaloes team, looking for, of course, faster starts this weekend coming up against ISA. As for the U18 female prep Buffaloes, Gordy, they also battled into close games on the scoreboard against Nax as well as OHA Edmonton coming out on the losing end of both, losing 5-3. The assessment for a U18 female prep Buffaloes squad who seemed like they were pretty competitive in their own right in these two matchups.
Yeah, it's much similar to the U18 guys. They just didn't have quite enough scoring and gave up too many goals early in all 3 games. I mean, the two girl games and the U18 boys, all 3 games we gave up goals early. And I can tell you, it was the same thing in the U17 boys. Too many goals at the first period. Just not, having the pace that was required and the determination. We fight back, and we did again with the girls, but came up short. But that's fine. I mean, that's who we are. So we try hard and we do our best, and we're equal to the task for 2 of the 3 periods. It was the first period we're not. That's again, we got to remedy that. If we can remedy that. Get and that's it. It's interesting. Coaches, we say, well, your coach's job is to get the team ready. Well, my old coach and this guy was a pretty good hockey player way back when the WHA, Bobby Hull. He always demanded that the players got themselves ready. Each player needs to, and so if you watch around, I mean the goalies, we work on our stuff, and we know that if that puck gets dropped, you better be freaking well ready because they're coming. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's on our team or any team in hockey, they're coming. The other team's going to jump on you if you're slow to go. So, and I don't know why the rest of the kids can't get that message, or if we don't try hard enough. It appears that they seem to be, trying to get ready in the dressing room. They go up and they jump around and they get all sweaty and work out and do all those things. But then the game starts and it's like, oh, the game started. Well, the other team's going up and down the ice and we're chasing all the time. So individual players need to get it. I mean, you watch enough junior hockey in particular, and of course that Canadian junior hockey team and all those junior hockey things at Christmas time. They've always got a camera on the goalies who are going to start the game an hour before, and the guys out there, his eyes are going around in a circle. They're taping their stick. They're upside down. They're swinging from the rafters. I mean, whatever they're doing to get ready, I don't know what the rest of the guys are doing. Now, those guys seem to be ready. We got to do the same thing. And I don't know how we do that, but I mean, it's a coach's challenge, but really it's a player's challenge, I think. I believe, it's their career, their game, they're out there. Coaches are rah-rah, but how many rah-rah can you be when there's 60 games? You can't give rah-rah every game. So it's a business-like, got to go out there and play hard right from the get-go. We'll see what happens over the next little while.
Yeah, and I mean, going into that, right, Gordy, like it's a team effort, right? And there's only so much a coach can do. You're totally right about that to get their players motivated and ready to play. They can put all the systems into place, but yeah, if your players aren't ready to go or don't come in with that good energy, sometimes it's all for naught. So something that this the male U18 Prep Buffaloes and the female U18 Prep Buffaloes are searching for coming up. More fast starts for the remainder of this season, looking to finish strong. For the male U17s, Gordy, they finished off their weekend strong with a 4-1 victory over Prairie Hockey Academy. Started off with a 6-0
There
loss.
you go, right there. You
But
know?
yeah, finishing strong. Rick McConnell, when I spoke to him last week, said biggest thing he was looking for in his group was more consistency. Do you feel like, this is a big step in the right direction for the squad, knowing they were able to find that consistency at the end of this weekend that started off kind of bleak on the scoreboard?
Yeah, well, you go from 6-0 to two closer games in the middle by losses, and then you win the game, right? And we beat the game to beat the team 4-1 to beat us 6-0. So show up in the first game, show up in the first period, and just keep battling all the way. Guess what? We're pretty good. But when we don't show up mentally and emotionally and all those things, and again, I help with the goalies now. I mean, I'm a goalie coach guy, and Colin and I work hard on those kids, and they're going out and trying to be the best they can be, and maybe everybody else will say that they're trying to be the best they can be. Our goalies can't be bad in the first period or any other period because it's on the board, right? Them as a score. So, they have no choice in this matter. They've got to show up and be ready to keep things tight until we get our legs. Well, let's everybody come and get their legs early. And coaches would be thrilled with this. I know that. And you know what? The players would be happier. They wouldn't be as frustrated, we're always behind by this, by that. So get out there and get going and get your legs in the front. Maybe the warm up, we don't do enough in the warm up. I don't know. I watch both teams. The other team doesn't seem to do anything different. And so, the goalies may change their warm-ups once, and we do that and when a goalie's having a tough time. But when the players, they just kind of do the same stuff. But I don't know if it's getting their heartbeat going or the legs warm or what it is. But we need to be better, and that's 4 games proof of exactly what we're talking about. 6-0 loss, 4-1 win, same team on each end, and two close games in the middle.
I kind of want to get into, I was going to save it for, near the end of the season, Gordy, as I kind of mentioned, we'll wait and see if the start to get better. But if this is something that, doesn't truly progress until the, start of the playoffs, knowing that these teams ramping up their process to get ready for playoff hockey, is it something that gets addressed academy wide where just every single player sits down and gets a talking to, maybe a reality check from a staff member in the academy? I'm not too sure, just throwing something out there.
Yeah, that's a big subject. First of all, where in when you're selecting players, you're not always getting the guys or gals that you think you want. Sometimes the money issue gets in the way or other family things, and that's fine. I mean, that's the way it is. And so you got that issue. So you don't get necessarily the best players who are the best players and they play the whole game. They're the 60-minute people. So we get a few of them. We get enough, we get some, but we don't get enough. And so, you get one player on the line that isn't going. Well, that's the line isn't clicking then, sort of thing. Um, sort of, are the players addressing this, or is there are you sitting them down? Well, if I suppose I know the coaches talk to players individually at different times during the season. We have exit meetings at the end of the year. They probably, I know they take them out in the hallway and visit with the kids here, there, and everywhere. They have video sessions. They show them. I mean, this isn't something where the coaches are kind of just relying on the players to figure it out. It's something we again, the goalies, we work on this. The head part of the game is the hardest part of the game. It could because there's no real answer. The kids got to figure the answer out. Same for the forwards and defensemen, and we got to get more of them locked in at the start of the game and throughout the game than we have, and so it's a conundrum. Big word for us hockey people, but it is a conundrum, and we need to work. We continue to work on that.
Yeah, and maybe what it could simply be, Gordy, is these kids just have to learn what it takes to,
Yeah.
win more hockey games that way. And going into it is giving yourself your best chance. You might not come out with a win every single time, but if you go out and give your full effort for much as you can throughout those 60 minutes and start faster, gives you a better chance, definitely for sure. This is a team, Gordy, that I think. You'll be really happy to talk about as well here coming up. But the U15 Male Prep Buffaloes winning twice in Grand Forks, huge third period in that first victory to power their way to a 6-2 victory. A bit of I guess you could call it a barn burner, a 7-4 victory the next game to complete the 2-0 record on the weekend. This U15 group, Gordy, they continue to impress throughout all the teams here in the academy.
Yeah, I don't know if Colin and Brad, the coaches, have got it figured out, but they show up early and they get going, and so that's a team that gets going. But I'm going to go back one for just a second on this getting started. Each individual player, the team plays well when everybody plays well. Um, but it takes each individual player to play well. And of course, they're being watched by scouts. Every player that I'm guessing wants to move to junior hockey or college hockey or somewhere beyond. Well, the scouts are watched from the start of the game to the end of the game. They don't just watch, the part that you play good in. They look for, so now I'll go to the U15s and say, yeah, they seem to show up at the start of the game. Those little guys are piss and vinegar. They go pretty hard. They're like the Energizer Bunny people. They just fly around and they check and they go and they skate. And so, yeah, the games are pretty exciting, but everybody's flying. Maybe they're not playing perfectly, and so what? But they're playing with energy. They're playing hard all the time. Good for them. And yeah, and they too seem to score more later. But at the end of the day, we're not giving up a bunch at the start of the game. That may be a combination of good defensive play by the defensemen and the forwards, and the goalies certainly have been good for us this year. So we're quite pleased with those two guys. Yuki Kido from Japan has had three or four. We've worked on the mental side for him or just before Christmas, and then again just after here. And he's come along. He's starting to figure this out. If he ever figures this out, and Gavin Hildebrand was sick on Sunday, the second game, I guess Saturday. he was pretty sick, but he played anyway, and didn't feel like he was at his sharpest, but he was okay and he got through the game, and we scored enough goals to win. But because my joke with those two guys, just so people know out there, is that when these two guys are 25, it's going to be Japan against Canada, Yuki against Gavin in the gold medal game, right here in Winnipeg. How's that?
Oh, it's pretty neat to see down the line for sure, Gordy, to see that unravel that way. I guess we'll have to wait and see what the future holds. But for this U15 squad, Gordy, like in the first game, 2 goals by Maddox Ramage, the rest coming from other players. And then in the second game, it's Cole Landerville who has 2 goals. And other than that, I mean, down the line, there were one, two, three, four, 5 different goal scorers in that game. So we've talked about it before. Obviously, this team has superstars like Cole, like Maddox, but I'll say it again. When you're able to get that type of contribution from your other players that aren't your superstars necessarily, must be pretty sweet from the coaching perspective and from a team perspective.
Well, I'm sure I haven't talked to Colin about that particular Brad, but yeah, they'd be thrilled with all the extra guys. Any hockey coach is your second, and third, and fourth lines contributing to the team's points and also defending well. That's the trick in hockey, I think, is to get the lower lines to score more, defend well. You're not supposed to be scored on. That's your goal. Don't be scored on, get the odd one here and there. The second and first lines probably are guys that should score more, but we got to keep them playing better defensively so they don't have to score way more to keep the score close because they're giving up too many goals. So it's kind of that's always a balancing thing. So when you can get the other lines scoring and the defenseman scoring once in a while, boy, oh boy, oh boy, that takes the heat off of you say Cole and Maddox and their partner there, and lets them just get going and do their thing. And it's but that little team has really stepped up this year in comparison to before years before, and really proud of their their effort and their compete from the get-go from the start of the game.
Yeah, and in their last 7 matchups, Gordy against CSSHL opponents and this Grand Forks team, they're winners of 6 of their last 7 contests, winners of 5 in a row. Looking to, of course, extend that coming up in a few weeks here, as they won't be back in action until January 24th to face off against the Edge in the start of a back-to-back. Gordy, we'll be talking more next week about, well, more exams, kind of what the vibe is around the academy right now, as well as breaking down the male U17 and 18 preps games this upcoming weekend against Indigenous Sports Academy, the Eagles. Gordy, always a pleasure having you on, and you enjoy all the great hockey coming your way. And as always, stay warm out there as well.
Not only the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy Buffalo is going to heat up, but so's the weather. It's going to be nice tomorrow. Have a good one, Graham. Thank you.
And Gordie Tumilson joining his weekly segment here on the Buffaloes podcast, brought to you by his brand and goaltenders, your goalie's personal video review service, as well as McKenna Fasteners and Tools, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, as well as Terrico. And wow, it was quite an animated Gordie Tumilson joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. When it's coming from a guy that always prioritizes, player development and, so much more over, in terms of winning, of course, he values winning, but not as much as some things. When he, starts to get animated about the way games play out and stuff like that, and calling out, well, I guess not calling out, but talking about the lack of, I guess, intensity in the Buffalo starts, and it's coming from a guy like Gordie Tumilson, that, it must be a pretty, serious thing that he's been, keen in on. But, it's something that, of course, is a challenge, I think, for all teams in Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, for them to, come out of the gate stronger here in their upcoming games for the remainder of this 2024-2025 season. We're going to show you the upcoming games once again, just to confirm with you all, unless you didn't see it. But if you have seen it and heard about us talking about it, the U17s and U18s going down to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan to take on the Indigenous Sports Academy Eagles. Both on Saturday and Sunday, both of these teams will be playing the U18 Female Prep Buffaloes, and the U15 male prep Buffaloes are going to be having a week off from action and having some time in their schedule as two forwards from the U15 prep program in Matson Adams and Alex Lopez joined this edition of the Buffaloes podcast, getting a chance to ask them about their first year here down in Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, what it's been like, as well as talking a bit about the upcoming games and, some of their favorite memories so far and more here on episode 17, season 2 of the Buffaloes podcast. We'll throw to a commercial break, and then Matson and Alex will be joining the show next.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
Boys, thanks for joining me on this edition of the show, coming off of two huge wins down in North Dakota and Grand Forks. Tell me about this past weekend, what it was like competing against those, I guess one team from the U.S.
Yeah, it was really good. I think the boys played well, but going against some adversity, we had a lot of guys out sick and a little banged up, but really battled through, showed some heart, and we got 2 big wins. And now we get to rest up and play Edge in a couple of weekends. Tough weekend coming up here.
For you, Alex, what was that like, getting a chance to, your teammate here over with Matson, experience some success, like he said, with some guys out of the lineup this past weekend?
Yeah, it's more playing time, but yeah, he basically said it all, so.
Oh, right on. That's perfect when it works out that way, of course. But let's dive right into how you boys got here to Pilot Mountain. We'll start with you, Alex. Coming from Dauphin, Manitoba, it's a bit closer than where Matson comes from in Dryden, Ontario. But what made it the decision for yourself to play for Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy at that next stage in your hockey life at this point?
So for me, it was mostly the development. Like practicing every day, playing every weekend, working out every weekend, and working out every day. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, that's such a huge talking point when I bring that question up. Probably the biggest positive that players bring up when talking about coming to Pilot Mountain. How have you felt that so far with this extra ice time and the games you've been able to play in the competition you've been able to go up against? How do you feel like you've developed as a player so far this year?
Pretty good. I like practicing with their coach. He's really good. Like he teaches a lot too.
You're talking about Colin Farr?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that been like for yourself, Matson? And then you can answer after Alex. Being able to learn from him, expanding on that day in, day out.
It's like he fixes your each and every mistake that you do, and he like teaches you how to do like the next best thing.
Right on.
Yeah.
And Matson, your opinion on that? The impact that
Yeah.
had on you?
Yeah, I agree with Lopez coming from a little bit further, but I got some family out here, and I really like the development that Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy brings. We get the opportunity to stay out after practice every day and do some extra work with Colin, and he's really good with us with getting that extra work in to get to the next level. Because, like you said, with the tough competition, this is by far the hardest league I've ever played in, and lots of bigger, stronger guys. Me and Alex here aren't the biggest guys out there, but like to work hard. But Colin really helps us strive there.
Yeah, right on. And hey, boys, I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. I was a small player myself, so I know what that's like going up against, tougher competition, bigger competition. Would you describe yourselves as maybe fearless out there, given the size that, you boys are given and have to play with, having to play a bit bigger within your means?
Yeah, I would say Alex is pretty fearless out there. I'm not as much so myself, but Alex is pretty fearless out there. He's a really hard worker out there, but our whole team is pretty good we're a pretty good hardworking team. Like just we for Christmas there we had a big upset against Beating Edge, and it just proves that we're a hardworking team who grinds every day.
Right on. And so far, the best record that this program has ever had. Going to finish with the most wins in the CSSHL season, which we'll dive more into that in a moment. But how would you describe yourself as a player, Matson, in your first year here with Pilot Non?
Well, I like to just try and be as all around as possible. I like to pass puck to my teammates. I like to pass more than score for sure. I like so I describe myself as more of a playmaker, just a hard worker, and yeah.
He said you were fearless when I asked that question a bit earlier. Alex, how would you describe yourself as a player out there with this year's Pilot Non?
I like to dig in the corners and stuff like that. I like to break the puck out, stuff like that. I'm not like a big point player, but I like to help out in the D zone.
Right on. I think that's huge too, right? For a team that has a lot of skilled players for you to complement that way. How have you felt so far with the development? Diving more into that's really helped shape your game even more so in these areas, fine-tune them, like you said, along with learning from your head coach and Colin.
Yeah, well, I think just the creativity of the whole team has just gone up. Like the creativity that we have to get in our drills transform into the game. I know as myself, I've definitely got more as a creative player to try out those things and not be afraid to make those mistakes in practice to just become a better player just because the way that the drills are ran and how we just practice every single day.
Oh, for sure. And for yourself, Alex.
I cannot agree with Matson even more. That was exactly what I was gonna say.
Well put again, hey. Well put, for sure, for sure. And I think that, for this team this season, I mean, it's built of a good mix of, those skill guys as well as, hard workers like Alex, like yourself, Matson. Good goaltending as well. A lot of success so far this year against CSSHL opponents, given this team's history of not having as much success with this team in the program in particular. So far, in the past 7 games, this team has won 6 in a row. Like you mentioned, Matson pulling off a huge upset against the Edge. How much confidence has this last stretch truly given this year's U15 Prep squad?
Yeah, I think we got some returning boys that really feel confident with the squad now after last year's season was pretty tough, as they tell us. But yeah, I think we got confidence now after we've been getting those, like you said, those big wins, the win against Edge. We pulled off 3 wins against Notre Dame the weekend before that. So just going into these last 8 CSSHL games, just trying to finish strong and just be ready and prepared for playoffs upcoming year.
I'll get Alex to start off by answering this next one, but for yourself, what's been, I guess, your favorite moment so far this year? Maybe it's been that upset against the Edge, or has it been something else, maybe bonding with the boys outside of the room, or has it been just the general experience you've enjoyed so far the most?
My favorite moment was definitely traveling to Edmonton. Like we didn't have too many good games there, but we played it harder against Nax, and that was a good game. But, yeah.
Right. For you, Matson?
Yeah, I all the hockey moments are great, but I like just before the season starts, we got to really bond as a team and go out and go swimming and jump around in the lakes and stuff and go bridge jumping, even go on the golf course a lot. I like to golf, so going golfing with my teammates is probably my favorite memories of this year. Ready to get back out there at the end of this season, get back out on the course.
Right on, big golfer. I know so many hockey players out there, right? Specifically, I feel like are golf crazy from what I've just seen in my lifetime. For yourself, do you have a favorite golfer in particular? Do you watch golf at all?
Yeah, I like to watch golf. I'd probably say it's pretty a common one, but I like Bryson DeChambeau, man. He's just so entertaining to watch out there. The way he crushes the ball and his putting is just unreal.
That's fair. That guy, he can really crush it. Now, I wasn't a big fan of his out driving the Masters quote. I think that could have cursed him. Maybe he got some karma that year, but such a great talent.
Yeah.
Maybe he does break that curse and win the Masters at some point. We'll have to wait and see. But for this Buffalo squad, getting a bit of downtime. I guess not really because you guys have to have your mental on full dial here with exams coming up. What's that been like getting prepped for, the big test while trying to also stay in that mindset of preparing for the upcoming week? So I got Alex to start off by answering this one.
So like we have study hall every day, so like we all like study together, try our best every night, and we have a science exam coming up in 2 weeks from now, so we're all studying for that.
Right on. For you, Matson, obviously doing the same thing as the boys, but how are you keeping, I guess, yourself motivated and keeping yourself, I guess, in the preparation mindset ahead of a big, few games coming up, starting off with that edge game?
Yeah, well, we got a pretty good balance here. We start our mornings off with hockey, and then we focus ourselves in school, and then we have some more hockey based things, and we have study hall to kind of relax and sit down and focus on the work and stuff like that. So we get a lot of time to do our studying. Some boys go in for in the morning to do some extra schoolwork. So it's really good balance here that I think it helps a lot of us out with our schoolwork. We got some pretty good student athletes on our team.
Right on. Yeah, I assume you boys are pretty good in the classroom as well.
Yeah, I think we do both pretty well in the classroom.
Oh, right on. Well, you two should be fine then for these upcoming exams. Best of luck with that. Always a stressful time, I know, no matter how you kind of spin it. I'm sure there's some anxiety, but sure, y'all are going to do great. And yeah, coming up, a big back-to-back against the Edge once you two and the rest of the U15s are back in action starting on the 24th. Ending off that weekend against the Notre Dame Hounds, a team you boys have had quite a lot of success against so far this season, with about 8 CSSHL games remaining and how big these matchups are coming up. What's this team, I guess, looking to accomplish? Is it going out there and stunning the Edge and going 3-0 on the weekend?
That's the goal. We just gotta try hard each game and have mentally prepped for the game and give it all.
Right on.
Yeah, I agree with Alex there. Edge is a tough opponent, but get to go out on the road, nothing to lose out there. We just gotta lay our hearts out, like Alex said, try and get a couple whip points out of the Edge, and then come back on the road against Notre Dame, like you said, have some success, but can't lay back or anything just because we won the last couple ones. We still got to push through and get those wins. Not every win is an easy win in the league.
Oh, and that's for sure. And for this U15 squad, great mindset, I think, is taking this team a long way so far, along with the talent and the balance this team has this year. Boys, Alex and Matson, Adams, and Alex Lopez joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. Thanks for taking the time. Best of luck in your exams coming off, as well as best of luck against Edge and Notre Dame once you boys are returning to play here coming up in a few weeks.
Thank you for having us.
And Matson Adams, Alex Lopez joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast here on this Wednesday morning. We actually did the interview last night, so this one pre-recorded, as well as our interview, as always, with Gordie Tumilson earlier on in this episode. But yeah, for Matson, Alex, as well as all the other U15 Prep Buffaloes, they're getting ready for exam week coming up for themselves. I believe Monday it starts for them, and I believe they have an exam on Wednesday as well. Full Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy exam schedule for the first semester available on their social media, and I'm sure, of course, all the kids that are playing for this academy already know their schedule. I'm sure if they don't, well, better learn it quick, of course. No, I only kid. But for the male U17s and male U18 Prep Buffaloes, they're going to be getting a bit of hockey before they start off their exams, taking on the Indigenous Sports Academy Eagles, both on Saturday and Sunday for both of these programs. You can catch all the action on Flow Sports. Games will be played in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. As for us here at G Show Productions, not only the Buffaloes podcast this week, but plenty of more content coming your way on your home for hockey here in Manitoba in 2024-2025. We're going to throw it to one last transition here, and then I'll be back for some final words on this edition of the Buffaloes podcast on G Show Productions. Well, you made it to the end of this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. If you are new here, or if you're a viewer that's seen this podcast a few times and you haven't subscribed, consider doing it. Help support us here on the channel, as well as consider leaving a like if you enjoyed this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. Would help us out, and yeah, maybe help some people here on YouTube that haven't seen our content before that may be interested. Could lead to it being recommended to them. So would appreciate that. But if not, it's all good as well. I just appreciate your support for viewing this edition of the Buffaloes podcast, to be honest with you. We'll be back again next Wednesday at 8 a.m. Central Time with an all-new set of guests. Of course, Gordie will be joining next week's edition of the show as well. Special thanks to him, Matson, and Alex for joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast, as well as to Gordie's sponsor, or his brand, who sponsors us in goaltenders, Terrico. Make Cannon Fasteners and Tools, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia for supporting the continuous coverage of Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy hockey here on your home for hockey in Manitoba on G Show Productions on gshow.ca. Until next week, folks, we'll see you again for an all-new edition of Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcasting, where I'll, of course, be joined by a new set of guest lists, as mentioned, and yeah, also going to be bringing you more news from around the academy. Best of luck to the U17s and U18 male prep Buffaloes coming up this weekend in Saskatoon. We'll leave you off with Tyson Unruh's edition of the March of the Buffaloes theme here on Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy's official podcast on G Show Productions. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.